Ladies and gentlemen, we're about done with the first season of the 12-team playoff, a completely different postseason schedule, and there certainly is some shift in the way people want to do things moving forward. Now, this article talks about a lot of the obvious stuff that potentially will be changed, including, I think, the big one, which would be moving the regular season up a week. Do you do that, or do you take away the exclusive Army-Navy game if you do decide to move the regular season up a week? Then based off of the current format that we have, because of just the way it's done, every team gets two byes. You would have some years, like I believe this upcoming year, teams playing two games in August. They'd be playing like August 23rd, August 30th. I mean, that's pretty early to start, but that could potentially be happening. And this all stems from the idea of the college football season lasting too long because of the extended playoff. And remember, this is probably just another year, this 12 team, and then we'd likely get more information this offseason, shifting to a 14 team playoff as it continues to be a trial and error period when it comes to college football. And that's not to mention the NIL stuff, all the problems in terms of the transfer portal opening before the end of the bowls. I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to college football, emphasizing bowl games. Your season is not over at the end of the regular season. We want there to be good bowl games. And so you can at least help that a little bit by saying, no, the transfer portal does not open until the Monday after the national title. It could really help give more energy to the sport right after the season is over, as you'd have a lot of players entering the portal, although I could understand coaches being angry about it. Either way, we're going to kind of summarize this 10-point plan to fix the college football schedule. You can see the first one, I'm going to focus on some of these a little bit more than others. Move spring football to June. The second one, open the transfer portal in July. So yeah, that's a big one. And obviously we have a huge issue now to where there are some teams that couldn't field a team because in between the period of the regular season ending and the bowl game, they fire their head coach, and then 15, 20, 30 players enter the portal, and they're like, I mean, we don't have a team. So obviously that can't happen. I mean, that's absurd. That's just incompetence when it comes to the NCAA and the way the schedules are done. So you're going to have to change it to where, I mean, I guess hypothetically, you could open the transfer portal window before the national title, because it's not like players playing in the national title are going to be at risk of entering the portal. So you could do it sooner, but I would say make it a big event like the Monday after or I guess the national title is on a Monday, like the next Tuesday or the next Wednesday, open the portal for everyone, and then players jump in and everything like that. And you get it done in like a month, 2 months at the longest, and the portal closes. So that would be what I would say. I think they are going to have to change it no matter what, just based off of how ridiculous it is right now. Mini camps in March and April, turn spring football into 12 June practices, move up the early signing period. So they would want to move it up from December. Right now, it being in December, a lot of coaches complain about it, because as they get ready for playoff games or their bowl game, you're focused on this early signing period, which is basically it's not the official signing, but most kids do the early signing so they can get to the school faster. And it's just better if you know where you're going to go to do early signing. That's why most classes, most of the players do the early signing period. So you can move that up even earlier and not really disrupt. You can see the recruiting calendar would consist of an extended dead periods in December and February following signing day. January would remain traditional contract period, except for a 4-day stretch surrounding the national championship. June camps and visits, move the regular season schedule up 1 week instead of most teams opening their season on Labor Day. I mean, you do have week 0, so some teams already do it. And those teams end up, like you saw with FSU and Georgia Tech, those teams got 3 byes throughout the season because of the way it's done. Week 0 is basically just an extension of week 1. If you play in week 0 and week 1, then it's going to be a bit wonky. Then you're going to have 3 byes. So it would just be basically everyone starting on week 0, and it would move everything up. And the key here is the idea, and we saw this the way it worked out. We're so used to the Final Four, which was the previous playoff. It was a 14 playoff. It'd be 2 games and then the national title. Those 2 games back to back, and I liked that a lot. I liked when the first game was at 4, the second game was at 8. It just worked really well. Well, this year, I don't know what the Ohio State Texas ratings are. I'm sure they're going to be pretty good. but the Notre Dame Penn State ratings were very bad. And the game was on a Thursday night, and it makes no sense. And I think college football realizes you're having this huge game on a Thursday night, and then the next one's on a Friday night, both at 7:30. It just doesn't make any sense, and they have to do that because of the NFL wildcard weekend, because the schedule's been pushed back, as opposed to what it previously was, where all the big games outside of the national title would be done by the 1st of January, New Year's Day. And so I think that's what they want to get back to. So they're going to have to move the schedule up a week potentially, or take out the Army-Navy week. And that might even be easier than moving everyone and forcing everyone to play almost 2 games in August. You could do that. Or you could say, not everyone gets double buys, and just make it one buy just like the NFL. There's a few different things you could do. But the idea is all of the important games you kind of want to have done outside of the national title by New Year's Day. Otherwise, it kind of sets this weird thing that we had to where there was, to me, it feels off. And it obviously hurt in terms of ratings significantly. And so I do think that's something that they're probably going to do. I don't know what the exact adjustment is going to be. Our team's really going to be starting August 23rd, August 24th. Or are they going to take away the Army-Navy week? I'm not exactly sure. I know teams like to have that extra week off, late in the season after the regular season ends with that week. But this is something that I think is going to happen just because of the way the schedule is aligning and the way it looks right now, with just it being kind of weird to where it feels like college football is about to be over, but then there's these 2 more games and they're not double. So it seems like you have to utilize the New Year's Eve and New Year's Day event in a bigger sense. It'd be nice to have like college football games on Christmas. I don't know. No, I don't think that. Maybe New Year's would be nice, but it seems like the NFL's taken over all of that. And also you'd probably have some bad ratings because people would be with their families. Add another round of home games to the college football playoffs. So this is another one. That's the 2 big ones that I've seen. It's shifting the season to make it end earlier, and also adding another home round, because to be fair, the 4 teams that had buys, and this is like a big thing people are talking about, I think they all lost. A lot of that is because the way the auto buy process works is so dumb, because you have teams like Arizona State and Boise State getting buys, and then they're 10-point underdogs. I mean, what was Arizona State, 14-point underdogs to Texas? I mean, they could have won that game, but still, it's like the way that process is done. This is just about the scheduling, not about the seeding and the auto buys, but that's part of the reason why all of the teams that had a bye lost. But you're also not giving them a big advantage. Like Oregon, for example, got screwed. They get a bye, and then they have to play a neutral site game against Ohio State, and they're 2-point underdogs. I mean, that's crazy. The only team to go undefeated in the regular season, their reward is to have a bye, but then play neutral site. You don't even get a home game. I mean, ideally, I would say it would be an advantage for Oregon if they got 1 home game. That'd be an advantage. But with what they got, I mean, sure, you get 1 extra week of rest over Ohio State, who has to face Tennessee, but it's just not enough. So that is understandable. The problem there is, how do you work in the New Year's Six Bowls into games played on college campuses? Like, is the Cotton Bowl going to be played at Alabama, at Tuscaloosa? Like, how does that work exactly? Actually, you know what? I think they do have a fix for this, although it's kind of weird. Yeah, this is what it would be to try and fix that. Create a New Year's Day bowl festival. 6 bowls that make up the current quarterfinal and semifinal rounds would rotate so that 2 serve as semifinals every 3rd season. So I think what they're saying is there's only going to be 2 important New Year's Six bowls in regards to the playoff every season that rotate. And then the other 4 are going to be basically what they were before the 12-team playoff, which are big games. But the problem is we would have kids sit out of those games, which is why it's part of the reason they expanded in the first place. They also wanted more inventory. They wanted to make more money. But that was one of the big problems you would have, to where it was the Cotton Bowl. But if the Cotton Bowl is not part of the 4-team playoff, which at that point it was in a rotation, just like they're saying here, where 2 would get it every year and then the other 4 would be just regular bowl games. The Cotton Bowl could have teams or players opting out because it's just it is a big bowl hypothetically, but it really wasn't being treated like that. You can see while this carries the appearance of a demotion, it actually could protect the highest level bowl games in similar fashion to the old New Year's Six. It's the same thing. The other 4 will be part of a New Year's Day Bowl festival from December 30th through January 2nd, and include every team that lost its first round matchup. See, this is where it becomes a problem. The issue is teams that lose their first round matchup, some of those players are going to end up opting out. So you want them to play again and you want more inventory for New Year's Six because you have this issue, and this is the problem with adding another round of home games. How does the Cotton Bowl get played in Columbus? Is that, is it still going to be called the Cotton Bowl? So if you don't do that, then you do something like this where you have teams that lost in the first round play again, but then some players from those teams are not going to want to play. I mean, it's just, this is where it becomes a little bit of an issue. But I mean, I guess it's a creative thing to try and do. This would allow programs to secure 15 extra practices and experience a positive postseason opportunity. I mean, I guess, I don't know. And then tier the other bowls. And I think this is based off of like a draft system. A lot of people have been recommending that when you're talking about the bowl games and stuff, you should do it kind of like a, where different bowls get to pick who plays rather than tie-ins. But I mean, I don't think a team from the SEC should face a team from the SEC. I don't think that should be permitted. You can see they're saying it should be a draft process, and it's like this is where you add TV into it and stuff. You try and make it a big thing with bowls. And I mean, it would be kind of funny to see like the last team get picked for a bowl. I mean, so it would, maybe something like that could happen. I mean, right now it's very bad the way they do it. It's totally mismanaged. The bowls really trickle out like during the NFL games. I don't know if it's like week 14, week 15, whatever, but it's during an NFL Sunday, and nobody really pays attention to it because it's just the way it's done is really bad, and they need to fix it, and they can market it better, and that's material where you're announcing different bowl games that they don't even announce it; it just trickles out outside of the playoff, obviously. So yeah, there's some things that they could do. I think the biggest thing is, or one of the biggest things is changing the entire schedule to make it more centered around that New Year's day. You also do have the issue, and this has been an issue forever with the NFL. You cannot play your national title on, preferably it would be Saturday night at 7:30. That would be the best time to play it, ideally. But because of the NFL, unless you could somehow work out something to where, I mean, the situation would be the NFL instead of, because right now they have two games on Saturday, one's at 4, one's at 8. I mean, ideally they could just have one be at, I don't know if they would have a game at noon Eastern. I don't think they would, but like 1 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock, and then the college football national title on at 7:30 or 8. I mean, that would be ideal, but I don't know if would they really want to do that. I mean, it seems like an easy fix, but they'd probably lose a little bit of ratings and they'd be angry. But just for college football, it'd be so much better to have a national title. I mean, it is a Saturday sport. All the games are normally on Saturday. That's what it is, and so the national title being on a Monday just has never made any sense outside of just catering to the NFL because you can't compete with them in ratings and you wouldn't want to. But it's like, what if the NFL just moved up their Saturday wild card games? Because I think the national title would be on this past Saturday rather than next week if you move up the season a week. And so you could have the first wild card game or you could have a wild card game on a Friday. Why not just do that? Why not have one wild card game on Friday night, then have one at Saturday at 1, then the national title at 7:30, and then you still have 3 wildcard games on Sunday and then one Monday. I mean, you could do that as well. So there's a number of things that they could do. I don't know if the NFL would really play ball with it. You'd have to have them cooperate. But you'd also want to get the national title moved to a Saturday at like 7:30 or 8. Ideally, it would help with ratings for sure. I mean, having it on a Monday night has just been, it's like such a second-rate thing for a sport to do to sacrifice that much, because of the NFL. But I mean, they are the big dog. There's no doubt about it. The NFL is. But yeah, these are some interesting suggestions. We'll have to see if any of these end up happening. I would imagine that there's just so much stuff that everything changes every year. Once they get like a pattern going, I think it should be decent in terms of like having some continuity with it being the same every year. But for the next few years, it's going to constantly change because they're trying to figure it out on the fly. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.